All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the little bit of the delay, but thank you for your patience. We appreciate you waiting. My name is Jan Sinclair, and I'm the coordinator of corporate partnerships at Community Living Ontario. I'd like to thank you all for joining us and welcome to our webinar today, which is entitled Stay Safe, Cybersecurity, and Ransomware. We'd like to extend our thanks to Kelly McKinney at McDougall Insurance and Financial for partnering with us to host this webinar session. McDougall Insurance and Financial is a valued strategic partner with Community Living Ontario in the insurance category and have been a reliable asset to our member associations for a number of years now. And so we look forward to another engaging presentation. Just before I hand the screen over to Kelly, we do have a few housekeeping items I'd like to share. All attendee microphones are muted, but we encourage everyone to ask questions through the Zoom chat, where we'll do our best to get to them at the end of the presentation. Also note that the recording of this webinar will be made available to all shortly after we finish up as well. So with that said, it is with great pleasure that I introduce our fantastic presenter for this session, Kelly McKinney. Kelly, the cyber floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Jan. Hello, everybody, and I do sincerely apologize for the delay. It's 100% my fault as the host. We had a fire alarm tested in our office, and the fire alarm is right outside my door. So there was no way we could have started the presentation with that going on. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. Ironically or coincidentally, a fire alarm is like the first step in testing that, is in protecting your building, from an old risk like fire. And this presentation is about, one of the newest risks in the world, which is cyber presentation. So we've got about 25 minutes planned. I cut into your time with a fire alarm, so I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. But if you have questions, as Ian said, enter it into the chat, and I will answer at the end of the presentation, just because it's difficult to cut in and out to answer questions. So here we go, and hopefully everyone can see my screen. If you can't, send a note in the chat group and we'll straighten it out. But right now you should see an introduction. My name is Kelly McKinney. That's a picture of me on your right. And that is Buster, who is not my dog, I have to admit it. He's a dog of a good friend of mine, but I use him for the photo op because everybody likes pets, and they're more fun to look at than me. I've been in the insurance business for 16 years. I'm with a brokerage called McDougall Insurance, and I'm a partner, shareholder with the company, and I just focus on commercial insurance. So at one point I did home and auto insurance. If you have questions afterwards about your car, your home insurance, I'm happy to help out. But I focus on commercial insurance and more on cyber insurance. And how am I qualified to talk about cyber insurance? I did a course through Chubb Insurance and Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. And it was an 8-month course that was meant to have several sessions in Pittsburgh and in Arizona with a group of 100 students from all over the world. And sadly, with COVID, it was all remote, but it was still a fantastic course. And I'm still reluctant to call myself an expert on cyber because it is changing every day. But it's fascinating and it's current, and there's some really cool stuff that happens. So I like it. And people say, oh, insurance is boring. I don't find insurance boring at all. Commercial insurance, I insure all kinds of organizations, manufacturing, some for-profit, lots of nonprofits. A lot of community living organizations. I find it fascinating, and cyber insurance is even more fascinating. So we did a little test beforehand. We had a couple questions for you all, and thanks to Ian for doing that, and thanks to Ian and Heather and Ronald for organizing everything and hosting this today. So the question was, do you know someone who has suffered a cyber attack? This was just for fun to get some, participation. So for your curiosity, of the 53 people that responded, 24 know someone who's had a cyber attack or their organization. So that's 46%. No big surprise. 4 years ago, if we'd asked this question, you might have 2 or 3 people, I'm guessing, out of the group of 53. And in this case, we've got 46%. It's happening every single day. And I'll get into lots more details about how they happen and why they happen. But the next question we have is, what is the biggest threat of a cyber attack? And you know what? We had some great answers, and lots of different answers depending on how you responded, whether you thought it was, how a cyber attack happens, or actually what the result is, what happens afterwards. Is it loss of money or loss of data? So I'm just going to run through some of the answers we got. Loss of data, ransomware, lack of strategy to recover, financial theft, I don't know, data breach, money, compromised data, fraud, on and on. Just some great answers. And it's all based on your perspective, what you think is happening in the world and how it would affect your organization. They're all right. The biggest threat that we see right now, and this is insuring thousands of clients for cyber insurance, and we have probably 100,000 clients in total, and some of them don't have cyber insurance yet. We still get calls saying, hey, I got hacked. What do I do? Can you help us? And we help those people. But when you have insurance in place, it makes it easier because you've got like a team sitting on the sideline waiting for your call to say, okay, we got hacked. We don't know what to do. We've got an IT team, but they don't know what to do. It's really, and when it happens, it's really frightening because there's just so much unknowns, and they typically lock up your system. So the biggest threat we see, and this is from all the claims that we see, is ransomware. And I'll get into lots more details of why that is, but just a quick background. For the early days of cyber threats, the idea was they would hack your system and they would steal information with personal identifiable information. So credit cards, health cards, kind of personal information that they could use, and they could sell that. So they sell credit cards for X dollars on the black web, on the dark web. They sell, health cards are worth a lot of money. They sell that information. It's good, but more and more today, they figured out that, every company in the world uses computers. Let's just lock up their system and let's ask them for, $10,000 or 20,000 or 10 million, depending on the size of the organization. So ransomware is the number one threat that we see. Not to take away from all the answers, they're all good, but ransomware is what we see the most. Can you prevent a cyber attack? This was sort of fun to see people's answers. So, I'm going to start at the bottom. No, 3 people said no, they don't believe it can happen. Yes, 13 people think you can stop it, and 36 maybe. There's no right answer. I would say from my experience, you cannot prevent a cyber attack, unfortunately. And the reason I say that, and I've got a slide for it later, some of the most sophisticated organizations in the world that have, almost an unlimited budget for cybersecurity, they've been hacked. So it's just a fact of life. There's some stuff you can do to prevent it. And there's a lot they call it cyber hygiene. Having good cyber hygiene can help reduce the chances. But it's like saying, can you prevent a fire in your building, or can you prevent water damage? There's a whole bunch of things you can do to prevent it. And then sometimes, despite everything you've done, there's still problems. So who needs cyber insurance? Think about the organizations in the world. Small companies need it. And they need it because they get attacked by sort of small players in the cyber world who think, okay, this small organization, they're not going to have the sophistication of, high-end firewalls and an IT department that can fix things. So we're going to target them. We're going to go for, $1,000, $10,000. We're just going to lock their system up and ask for a little bit of money, and that's how we'll get to them. But big companies need cyber insurance too, and some big companies don't think they're a threat because they've got a sophisticated IT department, but then they've got deeper pockets, and they're a huge target as well. So they need cyber insurance. The government needs it. We've seen big hacks. I'm going to talk about that. And government, that's federal government, municipal government, provincial government, they all need it. The municipal government right now is under attack all over the world, but in Canada, we've seen a ton of municipal attacks because they've got, they got good information that hackers want, but more importantly, they rely on their systems for, they got GPSs on the trucks that do the snow plowing, and they've got taxation information, they got records, they need their systems as much as any business. And so they lock them up, and because they're a government, they do have money. The municipal government, their means to get revenue is taxation. It's not totally fair, but they have access to increased revenues if they need it. They increase taxes. That's how they pay their bills. So they pay For-profit companies of all kinds need cyber insurance, and nonprofits need it. And if you don't think you're a threat, we see claims from nonprofit organizations. I don't want to say every day, but it's a frequent thing, sadly. And you think about a nonprofit, an organization like Community Living is doing good stuff in the community. It's helping people out. The bad people they don't care. They're just looking for ways to make money, and they don't care what you do or how you do it. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world, and it's very sad, but they're looking for targets they think will pay them money, and they see as nonprofits are as good a target as any to them. So a couple cyber claims. Rule number one in doing a presentation is never put a lot of words on a PowerPoint, but I'm violating that just because it's so good, this quote. So SolarWinds, this was a breach that happened last year. SolarWinds, their whole purpose in life, they create software to protect industries from getting hacked. So they got hacked. The company that's in the business of cybersecurity got hacked. And that's where I think no one's safe. And then to make that point even further, they got 300,000 clients, global customers, including the 5 branches of the US military, the Pentagon, the State Department, the Office of the President. So you think, okay, am I safe in my small organization? Well, no one's safe. So the point of this claim is just, and I don't want to be a doomsday person or be, real negative or dwell on something that's an unhappy thing, but just the frank evidence is that no one's safe. So these aren't small-time hackers. These are, the kind of people that do stuff like this, cyber attacks like this. These are nation states. So this is North Korea, China, Russia, and then who knows who else? A bunch of other smaller countries that are just they're out to disrupt things. They want to make money for one thing. They want to disrupt things. They want to access information. And it's a real concern. So, you've got a nonprofit organization. You're not worried about a nation state coming after you. But on the other end of the spectrum, so we have, this is a real claim that happened to us, repair garage. It's a small business, and you think, okay, repair garage, like how susceptible today are to a cyber attack, and how reliant are they going to be on computers? They're not the State Department. They're not the municipal government. But you know what? They upload photos of car accidents to insurance companies, for example. And they are in today's technology. That's how they send information back and forth. And they have a list of who owes them money and who they owe money to, and their accounts receivable and accounts payable. That's all in their, it's in their computers. Everybody uses computer for business almost these days. So even a repair garage on the far end of the spectrum, they got hacked, and it's sophisticated. The bad actors, they call them bad actors. Don't think about, Hollywood. Think about, people at this level. They're probably people in the basement, working out of their mom's basement, and they're just hacking around. They're asking for small amounts, but they got into the system. They got in 6 months ahead of time, and they corrupted the backups. So what happens is when you have an attack, you say, okay, shut down the system. Let's go to our backups. You go to your backups. If they're infiltrated, then you got a real problem. And that happened to one of our small clients. So this is happening on all levels. Nonprofits, this is a terrible one, but it's in the public record. This is the Children's Aid. And they didn't get hacked per se, but what they did is they had information on their website that was not password protected. And it was simply information about the kids that they had in care. So these are, some of the most vulnerable people in the population. And so what someone did is they took the names of the kids and they posted on a Facebook site. Why someone would do that, I don't know. But it's called a cyber attack because it's data, and data is excluded on 99% of insurance policies. And that's why you need a separate policy for cyber insurance. But they just took this data, this information, posted on a place that, people don't want that to happen. And so, when the case comes before the courts, the judge says, okay, Children's Aid, you've got a responsibility to protect this information, and you didn't protect it. You didn't act in a way that you should to protect. You didn't do enough to protect it. It should be password protected or something. And that's just the kind of attack that happens. And so it's a lesson for whatever information you share on your websites, to think hard about what's on there, what's publicly accessible, what's behind a password, or what's data protected. I included this. This is, at one point 3 or 4 years ago, it was hard to think about claims examples. This is massive software flaw of the global reach, forces, there's 3,000 websites, shut down on the weekend. So, I was looking for claim stories to make sure this was up to date. Well, it's not hard anymore. It's every single day there's something in the news. So I think you're aware of it. You see it already, but want to make sure you're more aware. This is the history of cyber insurance. So you can argue a little bit about, when it started exactly, but 2012 is an approximation. There was cyber policies before. Chubb Insurance is one of the world leaders. So, 1998 is when they started selling cyber insurance. This is when they started really tracking the claims. So it wasn't zero in 2012, but this is the starting point of this chart, and it's going up and up and up, and that's not stopping. So that angle of inflection, that's not stopping. There's more and more cases. So there's two things happening. So the number of cases is increasing rapidly. So every year there's more and more exponential growth in the number of claims. The second thing that's happening is the severity, and that's an insurance term for really the dollar value. So that the cost of a claim is higher and higher. And partly because ransomware, they're asking more and more money because people are paying it. And the other part is all the other pieces to a hack, like, getting your data back, like paying penalties and fines that the government imposed on you because you didn't keep the data safe. All those costs are going up. So a little bit about the landscape, what's happening. So I mentioned increasing in frequency and severity. Ransomware is said is the most prominent threat. The average cost of a data breach in the US, 8.64 million. Now, these are larger organizations. We don't see those kind of numbers in Canada, but it's a real data point. It's from the Ponemon Institute, and that is, one of the world leaders in tracking this stuff. So it's not made up. And how do people attack? The two biggest ways: phishing and social engineering. So phishing is those emails you get, and the person, they want you to download something, want you to click on something, and they're getting better and better because it looks like the email's coming from the CEO or the executive director of your organization. And they're even, they've hacked into your system. They know how they sign off. They know how they address people. If your executive director is casual and says, "Hey, Susan," they're mimicking that kind of stuff. It's incredible how sophisticated they are. And then social engineering, just a broad term for those kind of attacks, but also, specifically where they're trying to trick people into doing something, and it can be on social media, it can be an email. There's all kinds of ways they do it. A little bit of background. So these are actions causing cyber incidents. I want to share this, how it happens. This is a little bit fuzzy. Your eyes aren't changing on you. I apologize for that. I took it off the Chubb website, which I'm allowed to do, so I didn't hack them. But just, how do these things happen? So error, 18% happen on error. Hacking, which you think is a huge part of it, because I've been talking about it nonstop, but that's only 19%. Now, malware is 17%. So you group those together, whether you're actually hacked technically or you trick someone to uploading malware. But this is just how people attack your systems. So the actors causing cyber incidents since 2009, this is pretty good data. It's end of December 2020. So external forces, no big surprise. People are coming from the outside. But how about the number of internal things that happen? So 26% of the incidents are from internal. So it can be a couple different things. Can be disgruntled employees, but it also can be an error. And 8% is a partner. So that's one of your suppliers. It's someone that you trust to give your information to, or someone that's, maybe in your building and they're plugging in stuff. One of the biggest hacks happened about 3 or 4 years ago. And it was a refrigeration company came in to do work and I'm blanking on it. It was Costco or one of the huge ones, Target. Sorry, it was Target. And it was a $40 million claim. So they came in, plugged their diagnostics into the refrigeration to figure out how to, improve the cooling system. And that was the vector. That was how the bad guys got in. So it can be one of your suppliers. So a little more detail, where do they come from? Human error, disgruntled employees, hackers, viruses, vendors, of the cloud. And I mentioned the last time I did a presentation of the cloud, we bandy around a lot. I think people know this now, but I'll just mention it's my favorite definition of what the cloud is. The cloud is your data on someone else's computer. That's all the cloud is. So it's not up in the sky. Often it's in California, but the rules now, regulation, there's lots of data farms in Canada because we want all our information to stay in the country. But that's what the cloud is. So, people say, hey, our system's on the cloud, we're safe. It's not really safe. It's only as safe as the system that the people you've trusted. System failure happens. BYOD is bring your own device to work, where you're bringing your laptop to your company. Lots of errors happen there, and then lost, stolen, all that stuff. Looking at the time, I'm going to speed up a little bit. So the questions that they ask if you want to get insurance for it, these are the kind of things they're going to ask you: type of data, client base, number of records, revenue, employees. It's all getting to, how secure is your system? What are the chances of someone getting into it? If you do have a claim, it gets harder to get cyber insurance, unfortunately. And this, I'm going to go through this quickly, but it's just, who's the highest risk? This is actually changing all the time. So this is data from last year, but I know for a fact lawyers in the bottom left-hand corner who are, were low risk 1 year ago, they're now one of the highest risks. And the reason is they pay ransom. So when a law firm gets hacked, they've got lots of sensitive information. They've got financial information for their corporations. Our lawyers got our financials on helping us do a deal of some kind. There's divorces happening. There's all kinds of stuff. Whatever the family law, whatever they're practicing, they don't want that data out because there goes their reputation if it does. So lawyers pay ransoms, which moves them to the high risk category. Once that word's out, look out. So I've got a couple more slides. I've tried to demonstrate we're all at risk. It's just a reality of the new world. But what do you do to protect yourself? And, there's hundreds of things, but there's three big ones from an organization standpoint. Multi-factor authentication, big long word, sounds confusing. The easiest way to think about it is, more than one factor. So two-factor authentication is now sort of becoming the lingo. If you think about your the banking app is the one I use the most, and I go to add a payee and they send me a text. So even though I'm on the computer and it's, I'm in the app and they know it's me because I put my password and name in and everything, they send me a text to my phone separately and just say, hey, Kelly, is this you? Do you want to add Hydro as your payee? That's two-factor authentication. It's inexpensive to do. It's just a bit of a pain. And so, a lot of people don't want to do it, but I would strongly suggest you look into that, especially for remote users. Number two, very simple. And actually there's free resources available, and that's training for employees. So, the best companies out there, they suggest at least twice a year, train your employees on how to look for those phishing emails. And, it's real basic stuff like, taking your mouse and hovering over the address where it came from. And just being vigilant about it. The third one is backups separate from your system. And that means, like physically taking a backup copy like we used to do and taking it home and putting it in your safe or in your fridge or wherever, somewhere separate from your system where the bad guys can't get at it. A lot of backup systems are integrated. They're in the cloud, a different part of the cloud. Well, they're going to hack them both. So those are the three biggest things you can do. If you do those, you're really limiting your chances of claims. And then just individually, like what can you do as an individual? Those three things you might share with your IT department. Say, hey, are we doing these things? And we're going to share the presentation afterwards, so you can do that. But your individuals, what can you do? Passwords is number one. Don't use the same passwords for Hydro and for your work and your banking app. Make them complicated. Store them somewhere safe. Don't write them on a sticky and put it on your computer. Don't put it in your drawer. And it sounds goofy, but it's one of the main ways to protect yourself. The other one is slow down. And everyone says all these things can be stopped if you just use common sense. Well, common sense works when you're refreshed, well rested, you're at your computer, you've had your coffee, you're feeling good. Common sense doesn't work so well late at night. You're watching Yellowstone and you're working on your phone a little bit and checking your email. That's when bad things happen. So you just got to slow down. You got to watch. You got to be careful. The last one's sort of redundant. Slow down, be careful. But it's hovering over those addresses and asking yourself, am I expecting an email from so-and-so? If you don't recognize the email, delete it. They'll call you. They'll get a hold of you if they need to. And, if your executive director sends an email to say he's changed his or her bank information, does that make sense to you? Any kind of information on payment, you're not in accounting. Why would you be updating bank information? Why would you be buying Apple cards for all the staff? If it seems odd, double check it. I'm at the end of my time, and so I'm opening it up for questions. I'm going to ask Ian to come back and let me know if there's any questions out there. I'm looking at the chat group. I don't see any. That means I nailed it perfectly if no one has any questions, or everyone fell asleep. So I'm done. Ian, over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Oh, not asleep. There we go. See, I was just about to say, I don't think anybody fell asleep. I think highly engaged with your information. So thanks so much, Kelly. I definitely learned a bunch of new things there. So I appreciate what you delivered for us. And thank you once again to Kelly McKinney at McDougall Insurance and Financial for delivering this webinar for our education and enjoyment. If you would like any more information on anything that Kelly discussed, or if you think of questions after the fact, we will be sending you a follow-up email with Kelly's contact information and a link to this webinar as well. So look out for that, and feel free to reach out to Kelly with any insurance-related questions, cyber or not. And outside of that, we just want to thank you all for attending and wish you all a safe and happy holiday. And take care. Thanks again, Kelly, and everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everybody. Take care.